So here's a few points I'd like to share. I have a 2000 Jeep XJ, and this Jeep was giving me little troubles. It had a rough idle and just wasn't working correctly. I mean, you can feel that it's just not the same in the motor as it was, let's say, even a year ago for me. So I've decided to give it a little tune, obviously. So I've changed the ignition boots, as well as spark plugs. And I figured, hey, I've made the gap on the spark plugs to 35, and it still was giving me a little trouble idling. Higher RPM, above, I want to say 1200. It was perfect. It was running nicely. But at idle, it's just a day or two have passed. I've watched some video on YouTube and some guys explaining that that must be a TPS sensor, an IAC sensor. So what I've done is I took the throttle body off the intake. I've cleaned the sensors. One of the sensors was super clean. I mean, there wasn't really any gunk on it. It's just clean. I just wiped it off and I figured, hey, I'm gonna put it back. With older engines, and I think it applies to most of the engines, the intake and the block with heads tend to warp. So I've taken my the straight edge and I said, let me see if the throttle body, well, I've unscrewed it, right, is somehow warped. Maybe. Guess what? It was warped. My solution to this problem is a straight block. Sending straight block. I'm not endorsed, but this is what this is what I use. So I've taken a 600 grit and I just started sanding away right on a throttle body. Guess what? There was about, I want to say, at least a thousandth of an inch difference. I mean, you can see. So if you go and put this on your throttle body like this, you will notice some light coming through the straight edge on three sides. So I've sanded it down. Probably took me 5-10 minutes using 600 grit to sand out the throttle body as well as an intake where the throttle body sits. It worked. So if anybody's looking to a solution why your Jeep XJ isn't working properly, that's your solution. And so there are 4 bolts, one bolt on each of the corners. You take this off, you take this off, you disconnect the intake pipe, you disconnect all 3 of the sensors. There's one underneath here as well, this one. You take the throttle body, you sand it, and voila. Now, and look at the crud. So those are brand new spark plugs, right? And I thought, if I were to install brand new spark plugs, it just might work. But look at how dirty, nasty they are. And this was after probably, I want to say 5, 10, 15 minutes of running. Something wasn't right. This was done on all 6 of them. And so the warpage, it actually creates an extra room for the air to get into your motor inside your intake. Now the sensors are unable to figure out why is there so much air coming in, although the fly on the intake throttle is closed. So, and that creates all sorts of problems. In fact, my check engine has gone away right away. And I mean right away. It's gone completely, and it's been there for a year, and I couldn't figure out why the check engine, and it was giving a O2 sensor. I think one of the 4 O2 sensors. The code was 0314, I think. And I reset it a few times, and I even changed the sensor, one of the lower ones, after the catalytic converter, and it was still giving me that issue. But as soon as I've installed the properly, I guess you can say, blocked throttle body, the second I just turned on the key, that warning was gone. That check engine sign was gone. It is also worth to mention that after you've done that, you should reset your ECM, so that way the computer knows that there is no extra air coming in, or there's any error codes stored in memory would be deleted. Alright, a little update on my XJ. After fixing the idling issue, which I had, and it fixed it, definitely fixed it. Every symptom went away. It was nice to have that XJ back, with that smooth inline 6. The later issues I found was this crank sensor actually went bad. So a few days later, this thing gave out. I was trying to figure out why it wasn't starting, and rough starts, and just kind of in the middle of idling it would stall with some noise. I decided to hunt it down, and this is it. It was Rock Auto had it for $12, I think. $15, doesn't really matter. So that fixed the issue for sure. I mean, it starts so nicely right now. Now also, I've stumbled upon a forum out there with the XJ. Found an interesting thing. So apparently the camshaft sensor should have a little gasket between the block and the sensor, or and the reason for that, because it kind of sees how deep it really goes inside the block. So the solution to that, since I didn't have a large enough gasket for that, what I have done, and it actually fixed the issue again right away. It fixed little issues with motor kind of not stumbling, but just have that little tremble. It just wasn't working correctly. I've taken this metal and I've cut it in half, and I put one side on one side and as a gasket. So I made it basically just serves me as a gasket in there, and it fixed all the issue. I know it's only temporary, but man, this little gadget. Again, fix the issue on my XJ. Hopefully it actually brings some joy to your life when you see this video, and you'll be asking yourself, why is my XJ just having little issues, with rough idling or little stumble here and there. Again, hope you all have a good day. So I came to a conclusion why I had those issues with my motor. So apparently I had a little spikes in my on my meter, for the voltage was spiking up and down once in a while when I was driving this past winter. Went all the way down to, 9 volts I think, then went all the way up to 19 volts, and it happens sporadically, once in a while here and there. And I know I read somewhere also that that spike in your voltage is not really good for your motor or for your ECU or for your sensors. Finally happened to me, and I had to replace the crank sensor, the crank positioning sensor, as well as the whole coil rack, because one of my coils actually went bad last week as well. Number 2 was misfiring, and number 5 had a misfire as well. I'm not sure if 2 and 5 are connected, but once I've replaced that coil bar rail rack, I think it's called, everything went away. So it's really important to keep your XJ, that voltage just remains steady, and it's not spiking up or going down that that gauge. So the way that I fixed it, just took some so there are 5 points under the hood where that needs some attention really. You take some sanding paper, let me show you, taking some sandpaper, and I've also taken this, which is I think a really good product. Also took some dielectric grease and I put it in there, but it fixed the issue. There's no spiking of the voltage anymore. If you research the 5 points under the hood for your ground, primarily that's the ground issue. There's nothing really to it, especially in the winter or if you live in a wet environment, which I'm from Denver, so there's no wetness here, but winter really played a rough trick on my motor, because the temperature goes up and down. That kind of creates the condensate in the metal connections, especially something big like a ground wire, and there are 5 on the 2000 XJ. So do your research, look for where those 5 ground wires are. Take some sandpaper, take some of that electric cleaner and the electric grease. Maintain it, make that Jeep running smooth. Hope you all have a nice day.